Let me tell you about the moment I stopped being used. It wasn't loud. There wasn't a dramatic walkout, no raised voice, no flipping of tables. It was quiet. It was in the bathroom mirror of a job that drained me, in a relationship that clipped my wings, in a family dinner where I laughed too hard at jokes that hurt me. I looked at myself and whispered, "You're not living. You're performing. You're surviving someone else's script." And the truth hit me hard. I was being used, not just by people, but by the roles I accepted, the expectations I inherited, and the silence I agreed to in exchange for belonging. See, we live in a world that loves our obedience but fears our authenticity. A world that rewards us for staying in line, saying yes when we want to scream no, smiling when we're crumbling, enduring when we were meant to rise. We're trained to be useful but not whole, and that is the cost of being used. But not anymore. Tonight, I'm not here to give you a checklist. I'm here to tell the truth, to name what hurts, to say out loud what many of us have buried so deep it started to look like our personality. The exhaustion, the resentment, the shame of being someone else's convenience. And here's the thing about truth. When we speak it, we stop being used. We start being seen. So if you're tired of feeling invisible, of being the helper who's never helped, the fixer who's never fixed for, the strong one who's falling apart in secret, this is for you. You're not here to be useful. You're here to be you. Let's begin. My dear listener, you were never meant to live your life in pieces. You were never meant to give yourself away in tiny, invisible fragments, hoping someone might notice, might validate, might love you enough to make all the bleeding worth it. But here's the raw, honest truth. Your worth is not up for negotiation. Not today, not ever. We are born whole, but somewhere along the way we're taught to barter with that wholeness. We're told, be nice, be quiet, don't take up too much space. We learn early that love often feels like a transaction, and that our value, our very existence, is measured by what we can do for others. We learn to perform, to please, to carry the weight of other people's comfort on our shoulders like it's our destiny. And if we dare to say we're tired, we're called ungrateful. If we say we're hurting, we're called dramatic. If we say no, we're told we're difficult. So what do? We smile, we accommodate, we say yes, even when every cell in our body is screaming no. We shrink ourselves to fit into roles we never chose, to meet expectations we never agreed to. We learn to hand over our time, our energy, our joy, just to feel safe, just to feel wanted, just to feel like we matter. But let me ask you this. What kind of world teaches you that your worth only exists when you're useful to someone else? Because that's not selflessness. That's not nobility. That's a system built to break you, piece by piece, while clapping for how well you pretend it doesn't hurt. You see, being used isn't always obvious. It's not always manipulation or cruelty. Sometimes being used sounds like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," while never asking what you need. Sometimes it's the constant phone calls when they're in crisis, but radio silence when you're falling apart. Sometimes it's being praised for being so strong, when strength is the very mask hiding your exhaustion. But your worth is not a utility. It is not a service. It is not a currency to be traded in the marketplace of other people's needs. You are not a tool. You are not a role. You are not a placeholder in someone else's story. You are a living, breathing, deeply feeling, wildly capable human being. And the moment you begin to believe that, the world will start to tremble. Because a person who knows their worth is the most powerful force on this planet. Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but I love you too much to lie. If you keep saying yes to being used, you will eventually forget what it feels like to be respected. You will convince yourself that sacrifice is love, that silence is strength, and that burnout is a badge of honor. And before you know it, you will have built your identity on a foundation of servitude. But today we tear that foundation down, not because you're selfish, but because you are sacred, and I know. The idea of choosing yourself feels terrifying, because we've been taught that self-worth is something we earn, not something we own. We think we need permission to rest, to say no, to stop showing up for people who never show up for us. But here's the secret no one tells you. You don't need anyone's permission to value yourself. You don't need to be more lovable, more productive, more agreeable to deserve peace. You already deserve it as you are, right now. You don't owe your soul to people who confuse your kindness with weakness. You don't owe your time to systems that thrive on your compliance. You don't owe your dreams to anyone who scoffs when you dare to believe in them. What you do owe is this: the version of you that never got a voice, the child in you that learned to earn love instead of receive it, the teenager who wanted to scream but stayed silent, the adult who forgot they were allowed to have boundaries. You owe them your truth. You owe them your freedom. You owe them the courage to say, I am not here to be used. I am here to be whole. And yes, it's going to be messy. People will be uncomfortable when you stop playing the role they cast you in. They will call you selfish, cold, distant, but that's just the sound of boundaries being built where there used to be wounds. That's just the sound of someone reclaiming their voice, their time, their life. So, my dear listener, if you feel the weight of everyone's expectations pressing down on your chest, I want you to take a breath, right now. I want you to remember that your value does not increase with your sacrifice. You are worthy because you exist, not because you exhaust yourself to prove it. And the moment you truly know that, deep in your bones, you'll stop giving yourself away to be seen. You'll stop dimming your light so others can feel more comfortable in the dark. You'll stop apologizing for existing in full volume. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about bitterness. This is about clarity. This is about saying to the world, I am not for rent. I am not for sale. I am not a resource to be depleted. I am a life to be honored. And that, my friend, is the beginning. Because when we stop being used, we start being alive. Now that you know who you are, it's time to talk about what happens when we stay silent in the name of survival. When silence becomes the mask that lets people keep using us, let's go deeper. Let's talk about the cost of silence. My dear listener, silence can be holy, yes. Silence can be sacred, reflective, beautiful. But silence can also be dangerous, destructive, a weapon turned inward. Silence, when it becomes your only language, can become your cage. We are told that silence is strength, that keeping things inside makes us mature, makes us resilient, makes us easy to love. We're told to pick our battles, to not rock the boat, to stay calm. But what if the boat is sinking? What if the silence we've been trained to carry is the very thing keeping us small? What if silence is not strength at all, but the slow, quiet death of your own voice? I need you to hear me on this. Silence isn't strength when it protects your pain and enables your exploitation. Let's call it what it is. Too often, silence is survival. We stay quiet to stay safe, to keep the peace. To avoid conflict, rejection, abandonment. We mute ourselves to make others more comfortable. We convince ourselves that our feelings are too much, that our truth is inconvenient, that if we speak, we'll lose love. So we smile, we nod, we hold it in, and we rot. We rot in rooms where no one sees us. We rot in relationships where we're never heard. We rot in systems that profit from our compliance. And we wonder why we're anxious, why we feel like we're disappearing, why we lie awake at night, rehearsing the words we never had the courage to say out loud. That is not strength. That is suffering dressed up as nobility. You see, silence has a price. It costs you your wholeness. It costs you your boundaries. It costs you your freedom. Because every time you swallow your truth to protect someone else's comfort, you betray yourself. And over time, those betrayals build up like bricks in a wall. And suddenly, you're alone on the other side, wondering how the hell you got so lost in your own life. We've been taught to be quiet, especially when we're hurting. Especially when something's wrong, especially when we're being used, because the moment we speak up, we're labeled difficult, dramatic, ungrateful, too sensitive, too emotional. And if you're someone who's always been the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never complains, then your silence becomes a performance you don't even know you're giving. But hear this, your silence should not be the currency you pay for belonging. I remember the moment I broke my own silence. I remember shaking, terrified, my voice cracking. I thought the world would fall apart if I told the truth, but do you know what actually happened? The world didn't fall apart. I finally started to come together. That voice you're afraid to use, that's your power. That truth you're scared to name, that's your liberation. And yes, people might walk away, people might not like it. But if your silence is the only thing holding your relationships together, then you're not in relationships. You're in captivity. We are not here to be agreeable all the time. We are not here to make ourselves smaller for the sake of harmony. We are not here to be well-behaved puppets in a play someone else wrote. We are here to be bold, to be messy, to be real, to speak the truth even when our voice shakes, because it's not about volume, it's about honor. I get it, I really do. Silence feels safe. It feels controlled. It feels like power in disguise. But it's not power if it's costing you your authenticity. It's not peace if it's silencing your pain. Silence becomes the mask we wear to hide our unmet needs, the armor we strap on to survive environments that never deserved us. And let me tell you, no amount of silence will ever make people respect you the way truth does. No amount of holding it in will ever make them value what they don't even know you're holding. You are allowed to take up space with your truth. You are allowed to say, this hurts. You are allowed to say, this isn't working. You are allowed to say, I am not okay. You are allowed to speak, even if your voice trembles like an earthquake. Because when you speak, you send a signal to the universe that you are alive, that you matter, that you are no longer willing to disappear just to keep others comfortable. So, my dear listener, ask yourself, what have you been silent about for too long? What truth have you locked behind your ribs, waiting for permission to be set free? What story are you still carrying that no one else knows, because you were told it would make you look weak? Speak it. Not because you owe anyone an explanation, but because you owe yourself the dignity of being fully seen. This is not about shouting over others. This is about not silencing yourself. This is not about confrontation. This is about liberation. The world doesn't need more polite silence. The world needs your voice, your boundaries, your truth spoken in full, unapologetic volume. And if that scares people away, let them go. You were never meant to whisper just to be loved. You were never meant to bleed quietly just to be accepted. Speak, even if you were taught not to. Speak, especially if you were punished for doing it. Speak, because your voice is not just sound. It is your soul unchained, and once you stop silencing yourself, you become unstoppable. Now let's talk about the next piece of this puzzle. Let's talk about the thing that gives your voice structure, your truth strength, your worth protection. Let's talk about boundaries, not as barriers, but as the blueprint for dignity. My dear listener, somewhere along the line, we were taught that being kind means being accessible, that being loving means saying yes, that being a good person means never disappointing anyone, and so we gave. We gave when we were tired. We gave when we were hurting. We gave even when we had nothing left, and we called that generosity. We called that loyalty. We called that love. But I want you to hear this with your whole heart. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors to dignity. Let that sink in. You are not weak for needing space. You are not unkind for saying no. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are allowed to have limits. You are allowed to say, this is as far as you can come and no further. because your soul is not a public park. Your energy is not an unlimited resource. Your life is not open 24/7 to everyone who needs a piece of you, and I get it. We don't want to be the one who turns people away. We don't want to look mean or difficult or cold. But how many times have you bent so far to keep others comfortable that you broke yourself in the process? How many times have you said yes with your mouth when your body was screaming no? How many times have you betrayed your own needs because you were afraid of being too much or not enough? We don't need to build walls. We need to build doors, doors with locks, doors that open for love, for trust, for mutual respect, and stay shut to manipulation, guilt, and disrespect. That's what boundaries are. They're not about shutting people out. They're about letting the right people in. I want to tell you something that changed my life. Saying no is not rejection. It is protection. It is a sacred act of self-respect. It is saying, I choose me. And when you choose yourself, you give others the permission to do the same. You become an example, not a villain. So why are we so afraid to set boundaries? Because we're terrified of losing people. We think if I draw a line, they'll walk away, and maybe they will. But if someone can only be in your life when you're available 24/7, when you never ask for anything in return, when you never express a need, then that person is not in a relationship with you. They are in a relationship with your silence, with your compliance, with your convenience. You are not a doormat. You are not a dumping ground for other people's pain. You are not the emotional landfill for people who refuse to take responsibility for their own healing. You are allowed to say, this doesn't work for me. You are allowed to say, I can't be that person for you. You are allowed to walk away from anything that costs you your self-respect. And let me tell you something you might not have heard enough. Boundaries don't push people away. A lack of boundaries pushes you away from yourself, and when you are far from yourself, nothing feels right. You feel disconnected, drained, frustrated, resentful, and then you wonder, why do I feel so exhausted all the time? Because living without boundaries is like trying to run a marathon while carrying everyone else's baggage on your back. You were never meant to carry it all. That's not strength. That's self-abandonment. Boundaries are how we stay whole. They are how we stay rooted. They are how we teach the world how to love us. And let me be clear. People will test them. People will push. They'll say, you've changed. And you know what? They're right. You've stopped being used. You've started being you. The moment you set a boundary, the people who are benefiting from your lack of one will feel it. They will protest. They will guilt you. They will say, you're too much. You're too distant. You've become cold. But what they're really saying is, I can't control you anymore. That's not your problem. That's not your burden. What's yours is this, your peace, your clarity, your energy, your joy, your right to live a life that doesn't feel like a constant apology. You are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You are only responsible for honoring yourself, for choosing a life where you are not constantly rearranging your soul to keep others comfortable. My dear listener, boundaries are not a betrayal of love. They are the purest expression of it, because love without boundaries is chaos. It is obligation. It is resentment disguised as care, but love with boundaries, that's real, that's honest, that's sustainable, and here's what I've learned. When you set a boundary, you don't just protect yourself. You elevate every relationship you're in, because now love has to be mutual. Now energy has to be reciprocal. Now respect is no longer optional. It's required. Can you feel the power in that? Can you feel the freedom? Because once you understand this, once you taste what it feels like to live in alignment with your truth, there is no going back. You'll never again confuse sacrifice with strength. You'll never again confuse pleasing with loving. You'll never again confuse being needed with being valued. You will be free, And when you're free, really free, you start to see clearly. You start to recognize the difference between real love and conditional tolerance. Between connection and control, between support and dependence, that's when the real magic begins. That's when you can look at your relationships and ask, is this love or is this control? Because next, my friend, we are going to talk about what happens when love is used as a leash, when affection is a tool for control, and how to break free from the lie that love should cost you your liberty. My dear listener, when love begins to feel like a leash, it is no longer love. It is control wearing the mask of affection. We grow up craving love like oxygen. We watch movies, read stories, listen to songs that teach us love is everything, that to be loved is to be whole, that to lose love is to lose ourselves. So we chase it. We mold ourselves for it. We do whatever it takes to hold on to it, even when it hurts, even when it breaks us, even when it cages us. But love, real love, is not about possession. It is not about ownership. It is not about compliance. Real love expands you. It liberates you. It doesn't clip your wings to keep you close. It doesn't ask you to dim your light so someone else can feel safe in the dark. I want you to listen closely. When someone uses love to manipulate your choices, it is not love. It is a leash. You see, control doesn't always show up as cruelty. Sometimes it whispers sweetly, I only want what's best for you. I just worry about you. If you really cared, you'd listen to me. Sounds gentle, doesn't it? Sounds reasonable. But if you listen deeper, you will hear it. The fear, the grip. The quiet demand that you make yourself smaller, quieter, more manageable for someone else's comfort. Love is not about shrinking to fit inside someone else's fear. How many of us have stayed in relationships that suffocated us because we confused control with care? How many of us gave up dreams, silenced opinions, buried parts of who we are just to be loved a little longer? And we call it sacrifice, we call it commitment, but deep down our soul knows the truth. We are being used, not for our love, but for our obedience. We start with little compromises, skipping that opportunity. Not calling that friend, laughing a little less, talking a little softer, hiding that outfit, avoiding that truth, and one day we wake up and realize we have lost the sound of our own voice. We have confused someone's control over us as a measure of how deeply they care. But love is not supposed to feel like chains. Love is not supposed to leave you gasping. Love is not supposed to strip you of your identity to maintain connection. If someone only accepts you under conditions, then what they love is not you. It is their idea of who you should be. And let's name it. This shows up in families, friendships, marriages, even the workplace. We are told, don't be difficult. Don't change too much. Stay in your lane. And what they're really saying is, stay small enough for me to manage, because your freedom threatens their comfort. Your growth challenges their control. Your voice disrupts their illusion of dominance. But you were not born to be domesticated. You were born to rise, to stretch, to break through ceilings that others placed above you. You were born to take up space in your fullness, not to negotiate for scraps of affection in exchange for your silence. I've seen people lose themselves in the name of love. I've watched strong, brilliant, radiant souls dim their light so their partner wouldn't feel insecure. I've seen women shrink to fit the mold of the perfect wife. I've seen men bury their emotions because real men don't cry. I've seen children swallow truth to earn a parent's approval. I've seen friends walk on eggshells just to keep the peace. And every time the leash gets tighter. But my dear listener, love does not tighten. Love does not restrict. Love is not a leash. You have the right to grow. You have the right to change your mind. You have the right to speak your truth, even if it shakes the room. Even if it costs you the affection of people who only loved you when you were easy to control. The moment you stop performing for love is the moment you start experiencing the real thing. When you can stand in your truth and still be held, that is love. When your boundaries are respected, not resented, that is love. When someone looks at your ambition, your fire, your voice, and says, keep going, that is love. So if you feel like you're constantly adjusting yourself, constantly trying to please, constantly apologizing for who you are, I want you to ask, is this love? Or is this conditioning? Is this affection? Or is this control disguised as care? Because real love celebrates your freedom, not fears it. Real love grows with you, not against you. Real love sees you, not just the parts that are easy to manage, but the wild, sacred, powerful entirety of who you are. And yes, it's terrifying to walk away from love that feels familiar, from the illusion of safety, but you will never find peace living under someone else's leash. You will never find your voice while being told how to speak. You will never find joy while being molded into a shape that isn't yours. And when you start to choose freedom over familiarity, truth over performance, wholeness over approval, you will begin to attract something extraordinary. You will find connections that don't just tolerate your boundaries, they respect them. You will find love that isn't conditional, isn't manipulative, isn't transactional. You will find love that meets you in your fullness and says, welcome home. My dear listener, your freedom is not negotiable. You were never meant to be someone else's puppet. You are not here to perform for love. You are here to live in it, to breathe in it, to thrive in it. Now that you've started to untangle love from control, it's time to step into your next power. Because after you've set the boundary, after you've spoken your truth, after you've taken off the leash, what remains is yourself, worth, and that, my friend, is the next revolution we're about to step into together. My dear listener, you were not born to earn your worth. You were born with it. Let me say that again, because the world will try to make you forget it every single day. You were born worthy before you proved anything. Before you pleased anyone, before you accomplished a single thing, you came into this world already enough, already deserving of love, respect, belonging, dignity. But somewhere along the way, they taught you to tie your worth to your performance. Be the best, be the quietest, be the smartest, be the prettiest, be strong, but not too strong, be kind, but not too loud, be brave, but don't upset anyone, be successful, but only in the ways we approve of. And so we ran fast and we ran hard, trying to catch up to something we were already carrying inside of us. My dear listener, you are not a product, you are not a project, you are not a role to play or a checklist to complete. You are a soul, a story, a living, breathing miracle that doesn't need to prove anything to be worthy. But oh, how deeply we've been conditioned to believe otherwise. How many times have you heard that little voice whispering, I'll be enough when? I'll be enough when I get that job, when I lose that weight, when they forgive me, when I finally succeed, when I stop making mistakes, when they see me, when I fix myself. What if I told you that enough is not a place you arrive at after chasing perfection? It's a decision you make when you finally stop chasing. When you say, I am enough even in my mess, even in my flaws, even in my wounds. You see, we've been taught that self-worth is something you earn like a prize. But that belief is a trap, because when your worth depends on achievement, failure feels like death. When your worth depends on how others see you, rejection feels like destruction. And when your worth depends on perfection, you will live your whole life exhausted and terrified. You can't sustain a life built on the lie that you're only lovable when you're perfect. And yes, I know what you're thinking, but I've made mistakes, big ones. I've hurt people. I've failed. Let me tell you something that might just set your heart on fire. Your worth is not diminished by your mistakes. It is revealed in how you rise from them. You are not the worst thing you've ever done. You are not your trauma. You are not your failures. You are not your shame. You are the one who survived. You are the one who kept going. You are the one who still dares to hope. That matters. That counts. That means something. When we attach our worth to our performance, we live in constant fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of not measuring up, fear of being seen in our raw, unfiltered truth, and so we hide, we hustle, we perform. We compare, and comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the thief of identity. Because when you're constantly measuring yourself against someone else's life, you forget how powerful your own journey is. But the truth is, self-worth is not comparative. It's not something that gets higher when someone else's gets lower. It is abundant, it is unshakable, it is yours by birthright. And here's what changes everything when you finally realize your worth doesn't come from external validation. You stop begging for crumbs. You stop accepting toxic relationships. You stop working yourself to the bone just to feel seen. You stop shrinking, apologizing, editing, and erasing yourself just to be tolerated. You begin to own your space, speak your truth, stand your ground. You stop being used, not just by others, but by the systems that taught you your value lies in your productivity. You become unshakable because you no longer ask the world to confirm what your soul already knows. And let me tell you something else. When you believe in your own worth, you become dangerous to every system that profits off your insecurity, to every person who benefited from your silence, to every relationship that thrived on your self-doubt, because now you are no longer easy to manipulate. You are no longer available for guilt-driven obedience. You are no longer trading your peace for approval, and yes, it will shake things up. People will feel your shift. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. You've stopped asking for permission to exist fully. You've stopped explaining your fire. You've stopped apologizing for being whole. Because here's the truth, when you rise into your worth, you don't become arrogant. You become grounded. When you know who you are, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to defend your choices, justify your boundaries, or seek constant reassurance. You are anchored in the truth of your value and nothing. No mistake, no person, no rejection can take that from you. You deserve relationships that honor your light. You deserve work that aligns with your soul. You deserve to rest without guilt, to speak without fear, to show up as you are, not some filtered, polished version of yourself, but the real, raw, vibrant you. My dear listener, this is the revolution: to stop performing and start being, to stop chasing and start living, to stop earning your worth and start embodying it, because when you do, when you reclaim your innate, unshakable, undeniable worth, something shifts. You become magnetic. You attract people who see you not because you've proven yourself, but because you've finally seen yourself. And from that place, you no longer settle. You no longer chase validation. You walk into rooms knowing you belong, not because they said so, but because you know so. This is how we rise, not by becoming something else, but by returning to who we were before the world told us we weren't enough. And now, as we stand in this truth grounded in worth, it's time to step into the next power. Because knowing your worth is just the beginning. Next, we explore the courage it takes to live it out loud, every day, in every room, no matter who's watching. My dear listener, we've walked through fire together in these words. We've peeled back the layers. We've named the truths so many of us were taught to silence. We've stood face to face with the patterns that kept us small, that made us doubt, that whispered, "You are only as good as you are useful." And we've rejected them fiercely, bravely, with hearts wide open. Because this isn't just a speech. This is a reclamation. You are not a tool for someone else's comfort. You are not here to be used, controlled, edited, or performed. You are not here to spend your life proving you are worthy. You are here to live worthy, boldly, unapologetically, without the leash of perfection, without the mask of people. Pleasing, without shrinking for love that asks you to become smaller than your soul was ever meant to be. The real power is not in being loved for who you pretend to be. The real power is being free in who you truly are. So stop being used. Stop being weighed down by old stories that were never yours to carry. Stop trading your truth for comfort. Stop waiting for permission to rise. The moment you choose yourself, wholly, wildly, and without apology, is the moment you become unstoppable. And you, my dear listener, were born to be unstoppable. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Your worth is not up for debate. Stand tall. Take up space. Burn bright. Let the world adjust.